Hello.
Ellen, welcome to the show.
Hi there.
Very exciting that we're here in your studio, not my studio, down here in Melbourne, although it's significantly colder today than I expected. But it's great to be here. It's really awesome to be here. And I am excited to talk about what's happening with you and what you're doing and what you're building here, right? So why don't you, for the audience, give us a quick introduction on you and your role and what you do here.
So yeah, we're here at Melbourne Business School in our little makeshift studio.
Yeah.
That will eventually be a production studio in the next few months. So yeah, I'm Ellen. I'm the director of the Innovation Lab at Melbourne Business School, which is a big, bold, new concept for the school.
I like that word, bold.
Maybe audacious. I could even go audacious. It's quite audacious in its concept. And yeah, we're looking at setting up. So we've got a team. We've got an innovation team in place, a very dedicated, focused innovation team. And then next year we're looking to launch really probably an incubator focused on the kind of transformation of learning. And what needs to happen in that space.
Interesting. We'll come back to that word incubator because I've got questions around that because there's been a lot of different versions of incubators over the years, and I have some opinions on that that we can delve into.
Absolutely.
But tell me, did you come on to start this, or were you already working here and it was an idea, or where's this sort of come from?
So don't hold this against me, but I've been at this organisation for 10 years.
I'm not going to hold that.
Well, it's an incredible institution. It's known all over the world as kind of leading business education. But yeah, 10 years, and I've stayed here because it's a fantastic institution and it's got this fantastic community around it. And so what I've been doing here for the last 10 years is being a bit of a serial entrepreneur, I guess.
I like that.
Yeah, well, we can call it that. It's so I started the kind of online capability for learning at Melbourne Business School. And actually, as I was preparing to kind of come on your show, I was thinking, how many learners have I actually impacted? And with the teams that I've built, how many learners have we impacted? And it's actually, I think it's hit over 10,000 learners in the last 5 years.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, so 10,000 learners have had the privilege of a Melbourne Business School education,
which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it was only by thinking about coming on your show that I was like, wow, that's incredible in 5 years. Now we're trying to increase that number,
amp that up
at a much faster pace.
Audacious pace.
At an audacious pace, yeah.
So where did the idea come from? Is it something that you think sort of been dwelling for a while, or did you sit down and go, right, we need to do something? This whole ecosystem of innovation in Australia has really exploded in the last 2-3 years. We need to think about what we're doing. Was it that kind of conversation, or?
Look, I think what we've tried to do has been very focused on what we can do as an institution.
Yep.
Now it's about kind of partnering and kind of utilising, those relationships that MBS has at a very deep level, at the C-suite level.
Yep.
And thinking about how can we do this in a much bigger, more accessible, and in a much more scalable way.
Yep. So,
I think, by, what is it? Look, if I think of the stats, education is going to be $7 trillion in 2050. Yeah. And in regards to kind of the startup community in Australia for EdTech, I think it's just behind FinTech. I think there's over 600 EdTech startups in Australia.
And tipped to overtake FinTech in the next 5 years. Yeah,
it's a space, education is most certainly being transformed. It's been disrupted by startups, but at the same time, these startups have got some really fantastic offers to transform how education, learning, development, career growth, how it is all going to change into the future.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, isn't it?
Yeah, and so where did this idea come from? So we're actually kind of, our online offering and our digital campus, that's evolving at a really rapid pace, and you're going to see some incredible developments next year. So we're going to have our online portfolio come out, an online MBA, online short courses, online custom offerings. We're going to launch the first virtual classroom in Australia.
We'll talk about that in a minute because I want to talk about that. Yeah.
And so that's all coming, and I think that's long overdue. Yep. We've been a bit, like education overall, it's very under-digitized. But then we're kind of focusing on the lab to actually look at, well, how do we actually focus on our biggest learning problems, and how do we actually launch innovations, ventures that can actually do something about them? So we're not going to be a centre of excellence. I'm not an academic. I'm very much about action and transformation and thinking about things in a disruptive way. And so we're looking like, how can we bring Melbourne Business School, our partners, the startup community, the organisations we work with, how can we bring them all together and look at these big learning problems that kind of really need a focus?
And are you going to do that Australia specific, or are you literally going to go global on this? Because you can, of course. That's the beauty of it. Is that what is there a plan? Like let's sort of play around here in Australia, see if we get it right, and then go global, or are you just going to go for it?
I definitely would say we're going to go for it. I mean, we're Melbourne Business School, so I mean that's a lovely kind of differentiator. At the same time, you know, we have global partners, global institutions that we're connected to. So we're probably going to try and bring the best of both worlds.
And I guess that's where something like a virtual classroom is going to be incredibly useful. So let's talk about that. So you will have partnerships, I guess, with a lot of different educational institutions all over the world.
That's what we would hope,
You'll have partnerships with a lot of C-suites and companies that are also global. And then you've got the startup ecosystem here, as well as startups growing all over the place, but it's growing particularly here. That virtual classroom, describe what that looks like a bit to me and how that's going to bring them all together, because it sounds super cool. I know they're building it in the room next door right now. So I want to get an idea. What's it going to look like?
It's it's a very kind of immersive space. So it's the size of this room, but it's a wall of screens. It can hold 84 learners or individuals. So it's big.
So it's bigger than this room. It must be 84's.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll take you through it next year.
We can come back and film in there.
Absolutely, and have 84 people or more join us
on the show.
Live.
We'll have a show of 84 people. That'll be a new Give It a Nudge record, I feel. Sorry, carry on. Wall of screens.
Wall of screens, and we're all a bit sick of that Zoom kind of call and just seeing the face. We want to see the whole person. We want to see the movement. We want to see the energy. And also you think about the people who teach or share their knowledge or share their expertise from Melbourne Business School. It's important to see the whole person. So that's what people are joining. But then there's also the kind of analytics and the way people interact and the way people break out, which is a lot more immersive. And so the person or the people leading the session can see where people are at on a minute-by-minute basis. It's kind of taking the best of both worlds of face-to-face and online and bringing them together instead of just being so kind of, face-to-face is over here and online's over here. It's kind of bringing the best of both.
It sounds super cool.
Yeah, and let's do it. Let's do a live session.
We'll break a record of the biggest people on a podcast show.
Yeah, and I mean, look, this is really what the offer is. Also, part of the offer to the community, the ventures that we would create, the startups would engage with. These are the types of infrastructure that we can kind of offer to our community.
So let's talk about that lab. So obviously that's part of the lab. What else is going to be made up? And you said you've already recruited a team. So how does that look right now? You know, have you got a team of 4? Have they all got quite sort of clear objectives, or are we still trying to work that out? Because you're officially launching it next year, is that right?
Yeah, we'll be launching it next year. And at the moment, we're kind of testing it with the market. So, I mean, we're a little startup within the institution itself. So we have recruited a team of 5. So we have a head of strategy and innovation, which is a previous alum. He'll be announced next year. We have our head of venture partnerships, Pete Comster. We have our community manager, who you've been talking to, Alex Hawson.
Who I met at an event the other day.
And I believe he's actually hooked you up with a few other startups as well.
In this very studio this afternoon.
In the EdTech space, Storytel and Tutero.
Looking forward to meeting both of them.
They've got some really cool offers. And then we also have our innovation manager as well. So we've got a really kind of tight-knit group, very focused on that kind of portfolio strategy, how we manage it from a governance perspective, how we go from also not just having an incubator, but kind of go to the next step, because an incubator's, ideas to prototyping. And we need that because of the problem spaces we're exploring. We do need to kind of have those mechanisms in place to really ensure that those spaces get explored in the right way. But then, is it going to be an accelerator next? Is it going to be a venture squad next? Are we going to set up a fund? We
So
could
I
do all
guess
those things.
Question is right now, do you have the freedom? And the reason I ask that is there's a lot of institutions who are starting innovation type, I guess, ventures of some, whether they be a lab or whether they be a centre of excellence. And some of them I think have great freedoms to really just go out there and undo others. Others are still sort of battling against the institution to some degree. Have you got the freedom to really go out there and take it to wherever you want to? Because that's the exciting part, right?
Yeah, we've got endorsement from the top down. I mean, look at our kind of our Dean Internal, Caron Beaton Wells. She's, a little quote I like from her. She's around the innovation lab.
Yep.
We're going to give it a go. It's a big, bold experiment, and we don't know where it'll end up, but that's the fun of it. I mean, that's what you want from senior leadership, like that, and that's fantastic. But then we've also my boss, our Chief Learning Innovation Officer, which is Dr. Nora Kozlowski.
Yes.
And so this is her remit.
Right.
Innovation at Melbourne Business School. How do we change it? There's an entire kind of team behind that, about 35 at the moment. Okay. So this EdTech community as well would get the benefit of engaging with all these kind of very expert learning professionals as well.
That's cool. Okay, let's go back to problems. You said you want to try and solve real problems. Where are those problems coming from? Because I guess if you look at the startup community in Australia, it's changed a lot in the last 2 years. It's grown exponentially. If you go back maybe 2 years, there was a lot of people building fintechs like crazy and insurance techs. I think what I've seen a lot during COVID is people coming and finding real world problems, not necessarily just here in Australia, but all over the world, and wanting to solve them. With your incubator, as we're going to call it now, is that the route you're going down? Where are those sorts of problems? Are they always going to be driven around education, or is it going to be a bit broader than that into other kinds of problems?
No, we're looking to be quite focused. So we are looking to launch innovations for kind of how curious learners and organisations grow.
Right.
So it's not just learners, it's learners and organisations, because, we're Melbourne Business School. So very focused, and there has been a lot of focus from the EdTech community on learner experience, and the pandemic definitely increased that as well. We're really focused on this kind of lifelong learning and workforce development area. And so the kind of problems that we'd be looking at is kind of how can we explore more inclusive and equitable experiences, and how can we help organisations to create those? How could we look at alternative funding models to education? Instead of paying for the experience, do you pay for the outcomes?
Okay, interesting.
How could you think of lifelong learning and your career growth? How can we think about that in a different way? So we know broken assumptions are people don't have just one or two careers anymore. They don't just go to one education institution. How can we explore that? How can we look at the impact and recognition of learning in a different way? These are big problems that haven't kind of fully been explored. There are definitely some great startups out there doing some really incredible work, but we kind of want to take it further.
And I think there's a huge rise of people wanting to educate themselves in something outside of their work at the same time at home. Is that also? I know you're Melbourne Business, but you're going to look at that as well? Because I think you'll get people who, for example, maybe work in financial services, maybe work in retail, and they want to learn, and they want to be able to, and those companies as well want to be able to educate their workforce better. But then those people also often have something outside of that. I think most people are either looking at creating some sort of side hustle, which seems to be the thing everyone wants to do, but also they want to educate themselves on something new. And I think COVID brought that out in people. I think it just gave them a reason to have a look, and now they've had a look, they're kind of wanting to expand on that.
I mean, this is what's kind of fantastic about how people are thinking about their learning now. People are actually kind of being very individually driven and thinking, what does my career look like? What does my life look like? And how can I develop myself, especially if I'm ambitious to grow that? And I mean, that line between work, learning, life, there's no line anymore. No, it's just blurred. It's just blurred.
Integration, that's what they call it.
And so many people don't have the time to spend potentially even 6 weeks on a learning and
No, they
development
don't.
program.
They fit it in wherever they can. Right?
Exactly.
And it can take them long or short, or it could be a week, or it could be 2 years. It's different for everyone.
And it's not just an individual either. It's also about what kind of impact does the education have on their family, on their community. Thinking about it in a very, very different way.
And what about the wellness side of it? Because I think there's we're all learning about the wellness side of the new way that the whole world's living. Like everyone in the world is living in a different way in the first world, certainly, than they perhaps were 2 years ago. Like you said, their work and life are now integrated. They're working a lot more from home. They're working from unusual locations. They're working in co-working spaces. The traditional model has gone. And there's no question that's impacting a lot of people in a lot of different ways. From a mental health point of view, there's this big story around at the moment about if you are in the office, you're more likely to get promoted, not because they see you as working harder, but unconsciously they know you better. And they've got this unconscious bias to potentially give you a promotion more just because they see you more and they go to lunch with you more than they do with the guy who comes in once a month. And there's a lot of learning that none of us have done yet that's sort of happening on the go. Is that, do you think, to me, that's such an interesting problem that no one's touching on yet.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack.
There's a lot to know. There's a lot.
And I'm not going to profess that I have all the answers there. But I mean, this is also why the Innovation Lab will need to exist.
Yep.
We need to, how can we think about learning for the whole person? How can we think about not just kind of academic capabilities and what that takes from a learning experience, but how can we think of the soft skills that are incredibly important, and we know for the future of work they're a must, and that everyone has to have them. But all these things where we're kind of learning on the go, learning at the speed of change, in regards to what you're talking about with well-being, how can we create those more concierge services, those services where people, where it's more a personalised offering, and that supports them in the moment. So I don't have the perfect answer, and I don't think anyone does, but I think that's most certainly a space that we'd be looking at. So how can we offer more in context and personalised learning experiences?
There is a lot of opportunity in this space when you sort of start to drill. I'm not even going to get thinking about it anymore. Tell me about the program. So you said it's going to become a kind of incubator. So have you already got the companies in mind that you want to take into that? Are you going to have an application program? Is it going to be something that goes for a period of time, or are those things that are all still being developed? We're
still developing those. I think we are looking to do this. We're looking to bring the best of what Melbourne Business School can offer. So that connection to organisations, thinking about our alumni and student community, thinking about that ecosystem we are part of, very closely connected to the University of Melbourne and that innovation ecosystem. So bringing all that together and then thinking about how can we explore these spaces in a really fast, intensive, and impactful way, so that we can actually get to prototypes that can be tested with, those organisations that are willing to kind of explore this space.
You're going to bring them together, essentially.
Bring them all together and kind of think about, okay, well, which ones actually need to go into an accelerator? Which ones actually need a dedicated team behind them to really bring them to market?
Okay.
And it's looking at problems that, over the next 3 to 5 years, it could be the future of learning. And
it's going to change. I mean, as we've seen even this year, the world has changed drastically. The ecosystem has changed drastically. And you mentioned, potentially having a fund. The funding scenario has changed drastically. And it will continue to do that. And I think the thing that amazes me more and more is the speed of change just seems to... I know they talk about the speed of change of technology, but it seems to me the speed of change of everything is just getting faster and faster and faster. I think having a space and a program like yours that's trying to bring everyone together means you'll be able to adapt really, really quickly to that change and solve whatever the latest challenge that's coming up is, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, we're pretty excited. I mean, I think in our industry there can be a lot of intellectual discussion around the problem. But you're a woman of action. You said it yourself. And there are so many people out there looking to take action as well. There are. And why do they need to do it by themselves? Let's actually come together and do it together and kind of co-create this, the kind of and fill these challenges that just haven't got any answers to them yet. Okay. Now, this is an amazing new role for you, by the way. I think you're going to be busy. But you're
Yep.
going to have a lot of fun.
Yes, I hope so.
So, in your words, for anyone who's watching this thinking, this is super interesting, I've got an EdTech, I want to be in EdTech, I want to be in the future of EdTech, whatever that be, what would you say to them about the best way to contact you, to get involved? You know, what's the best way for them to think about doing that?
That's exactly it. I mean, get in touch. I mean, this is, I don't want anyone to think that we're not accessible. You know, we have most certainly created our venture partnerships in our community kind of roles in the team to ensure that we're connected, that we understand what startups need, what they're looking for, what kind of support they would want from MBS. It's so important at this point in time that we actually have people reaching out to us and kind of creating it with us.
At the beginning, right?
So, you know, my LinkedIn profile's out there. I do have people contact me. But, you know, through the Give It a Nudge show as well, I'm sure we'll have some very interested people too. So I just want to speak to everyone.
Well, we'll tag you, so don't worry. Everyone will have your LinkedIn profile. You might get 28 messages on the first day. Who knows?
Let's go for 100.
So don't be afraid, right? No, that's the message. Don't be afraid to reach out, whatever kind of person you are. Even, and I guess would you extend that invitation to also VC firms who might have portfolio companies they want to promote to you, or even some of the smaller private equity firms, and really anyone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is like we started. This is an audacious concept from Melbourne Business School. We've got these initial ideas. How can we make them better? How can we make them unique? How can we make them that our partner ecosystem can support? So yeah, we're open for that.
That's fantastic. Is there anything else any last parting message you would like to push out to them? Because they're right at the end now. They're going, okay, I'm going to reach out to her, I'm going to click on it. But have you got anything the last thing you want to say?
Maybe I'll do it kind of succinctly through kind of what our mission is.
Perfect.
So our mission is to be a catalyst for trailblazers to solve the biggest learning problems and launch innovations for curious learners and organizations to grow.
I love the language you have used in that. That's the most interesting mission I have heard in a long time. You've used really good language that I think probably imparts emotion in people, which missions often don't. So I congratulate you on that. That's fantastic. I like that mission. That's a good mission.
Thank you.
We're going to write that at the bottom of the show too.
All right, now we've just got to do it. Now we've got to pull it together.
That's it. And do you have an official launch date?
No, not yet. But I think in Q1 next year, we'll start getting it out there.
Fantastic. Well, look, thank you so much for coming on, giving us a little bit of a snapshot. I can't wait to redo the show in the enormous immersive virtual room with 85 other people. And then you'll have launched, and then we'll see where you're going with it.
Thank you, Steve.
Pleasure.